is the, okay, thank you. Thank you. So I will start with where I got my idea for this topic, which is my experience getting a master's at the Yenching Academy of Peking University. So Yenching Academy is a 2 years, fully funded interdisciplinary master's program designed to build bridges between China and the rest of the world, with the goal to shape new generations of global citizens with a nuanced understanding of China, to quote their own page. And I had a wonderful time in this program and met amazing people who became my dear friends. But what me and many of my fellow students commented on was the very uneven regional representation in the program, putting to question whether bridges between China and the rest of the world were being built. So this is the regional representation of the program on their homepage. And you can see that Africa and South America are underrepresented. Also, although Europe and Asia have a substantial amount of representation in the student body, I know from experience that there are very few Eastern European students and a lot of Western European students, hardly any students from the Middle East, and not many students from the ASEAN countries. So this raised the question of how regional and cultural exchange is being done in the world of higher education and what can be done to improve it so as to best bring out the benefits of and the meaning behind these regional exchanges in higher education. And also I'm presenting as a member of STEER, and since our organization also strives to have better regional representation, I thought this would be a salient topic. So could you please move to the next slide? I would like to talk about some existing programs that foster exchange and mobility in higher education. And if anyone has participated in any of these programs or have ideas or their thoughts on it, I'd be happy to hear it. I think we would all be happy to hear it later. So I'll start, because I'm from Korea, I'll start with something in East Asia. So many regions have their own exchange programs. One example is the Campus Asia program, which started in 2012 between the universities of Korea, China, and Japan. The governments got together, and since then it has featured many programs such as dual degrees, dual master's degrees, summer winter schools, etc. And since 2021, ASEAN countries have also joined. So like this, regional programs that start in one region often broaden or extend their scope as the program becomes more established. Could you move to the next slide? Thank you. ASEAN has its own plan for increased mobility of students and scholars in the region. It's a very robust region, and lots of ties in higher education is becoming one of them. The ASEAN Working Group on Higher Education Mobility 2025 aims to recognize, quote, higher education as one of the catalysts in accelerating ASEAN's economic, political, and socio-cultural development agenda, and embrace the diversity and solidarity of the ASEAN community through enhanced intra-Asian mobility of students and scholars. So goals aim to make the scheme equitable, diverse, and inclusive, and also sustainable. Yes, and hopes to raise standard of higher education in ASEAN overall and make it more compatible, the credits and etc. Could you please move to the next slide? Thank you. Another example of a regional exchange program, and I would say this is the most well-known and arguably successful one, is the Erasmus program in Europe. It was established in 1987 in an attempt for more student and teacher mobility. At first, it was met with resistance by some countries that already had substantial exchange programs, etc. And getting the Erasmus started wasn't a very smooth process in the voting, etc. But by its 35th anniversary in 2022, last year, the program had accumulated 30 million participants. And the vice president for promoting the European way of life said that one, quote, could not think of a better and more compelling example of what European way of life concretely means. And the Erasmus program has expanded into the Erasmus Plus program, which includes schemes of education, training, youth, and sport. So now it's not just about university students. It includes adult learners, apprentices, sports coaches, vocational trainers, trainees, etc. It makes the program more inclusive and more accessible for people of different socioeconomic backgrounds. So it is argued that Erasmus will form a generation of people who will form a different Europe, tied less to one nation and with a more pan-European identity in maybe 20, 30 years. And it is to be seen whether this will actually happen, but I thought this was a very interesting idea and proposition, so I included it. Could you please move to the next slide? Okay. The Erasmus program has come to include other regions too. I thought this was a good example. So an example is, I think it's read, Amir, the European Master in Migration and Intercultural Relations. It's the first African, European, Asian Erasmus Mundus program in migration studies. And there are 9 partners in it, including Germany, Norway, etc., Sudan, Uganda, South Africa, and India. So the program combines expertise in migration studies with intersecting fields such as gender, cultural, and development studies. And it strongly encourages students to critically evaluate and to enrich existing knowledge, encouraging students to tackle salient issues between the countries. So I thought this is very useful, since, you know, the program is set to, quote, decentralize knowledge production and dispersion, because it is said that immigration studies or transcultural, transnational studies focuses usually, it is the scholarship is made usually in countries of immigration instead of emigration. So the reality is that migration and intercultural studies are researched in countries of immigration, whereas the situation in countries of emigration is different. But scholarship in these countries are hardly recognized. So to combine knowledge of these different countries and continents, I think is a very good idea, which is why I included it. So could you please move to the next slide? Since the Istanbul Youth Summit is centered on Muslim youth, I would like to touch upon exchange programs centered on Arabic and Muslim countries. So I don't claim to be an expert, since I don't speak many of the languages spoken in Muslim countries, nor do I have a lot of personal and research experience, but I would like to get the ball rolling in terms of discussion. Maybe we can give each other ideas. I think this, as someone shares their experience, another person may be prompted to sign up for that initiative in a later iteration. So I have found that the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the OIC, offers scholarships to students, as well as providing platforms for students to look at the different scholarships in member states, etc. So I found the homepage very useful. There are also very robust exchanges between individual countries to mobilize Muslim youth and foster a deeper intercultural understanding. For example, Indonesia and Australia has several schemes promoting better understanding and deeper ties, such as the Australia-Indonesia Youth Exchange Program and the Partnership in Islamic Education Scholarships. So in the Partnership in Islamic Education Scholarships, the program, quote, aims to strengthen research and teaching in Indonesian Islamic universities and institutions, and to build strong links between Australia and some of Indonesia's most respected Islamic scholars. So yeah, I thought, since I think in university rankings, etc., universities in Arabic countries are said to be very underrepresented. So I thought this would be a great point to touch upon. So could you move to the next slide? So my observations are that there are robust exchange programs within regions, and higher education institutions are connected across regions and continents. If you look at your home institution, university institution homepage, they do have a lot of ties doing exchange students, etc. However, there is still more to be wanted in regional representation in programs. And my ideas to improve the situation are to have more cross-continental, cross-regional programs where different regions can have a better understanding, like the Migration Masters Program, Erasmus program I mentioned before. I think this is especially important in a higher education setting where the purpose is to challenge prejudice, misinformation, and build knowledge and better understanding. And we are not in a power position of power to make such programs from scratch. But for example, STEER is an entirely student-led think tank that strives to have more equal regional representation in our recruitment. And within existing programs, we should, as youth, pressure the organizers to have more wider representation. And within existing, if there are student-led initiatives and conferences within an existing organization or scheme, we should be aware of these issues and should take into account representation or maybe internal biases when organizing conferences that are student-led, etc. For example, when I was organizing a student-led conference during my master's studies, the whole executive committee worked to eliminate any biases in selecting delegates. Like, we had 2 people assessing applications to cross-check. We trained ourselves and volunteers and possible biases, and we tried to be inclusive if possible. So I'm sure many people in the audience would have had experience in their home universities, in their exchange programs, etc. And I would like to invite the audience to share their own experience and their observations and suggestions. So could you please move to the next slide? So thank you for listening. I thought this would be a useful pre-conference session topic, since this is a very wide-reaching summit. So again, I would be happy to hear your own experience and ideas. Thank you very much. So this is my talk.
Thank you so much, Ms. Yunsu. So personally, as a person aspiring to study abroad, you have indeed inspired me to pursue that dream. And also, I do agree with her mentioning that we should join different opportunities that would help us widen our perspective. So yeah, like right now, there are a lot of multicultural, multinational organizations that you can just join in. It's all over social media. If you just search for some, there are a lot of opportunities there. So yeah, I think our participants were also inspired by your talk, Miss Yunsu. So later we will get back to you when we have our Q&A session.
Thank you very much, Bari.
So later on, our participants will also have a chance to ask some questions. But before that, we will proceed to our second speaker. Nicholas is a Bachelor of English Education graduate from Sanata Dharma University and an alumnus of the Youth Exchange Program in the United States. In his professional trajectory, he officiated as the events manager at the Student Think Tank for Europe-Asia Relations and the International Diplomacy Officer at Indonesia Youth Diplomacy. Previously, he involved as a leader of the International Bureau at the Indonesian Solidarity Party. So let us welcome Mr. Nicholas if he's ready.
Yeah, thank you, Barry, for your greetings, and hi, everyone. Happy to be here. Yeah, my name is Nicholas Krishnamurti Wibowo, and in this change, I will talk about the roles of young people to uphold gender equality. Yeah, you can move to the next slide, please. Okay, first thing first, as we welcome the Istanbul Youth Summit, the respective countries which the participants and also from the steers, because we come from different countries, we want to commence reciprocal dialogues that aim for mutual goods. And I will utilize this momentum as well to, for me to voice out this very important issue. So I have the cases that becomes the urgency from my the substance of my presentations and the talk. So Turkey actually, in the gender equality indicator reported by World Economic Forum, also faces similar problems in gender discriminations, and it slipped to 129th out of 146 in the context of gender equality. I mean, personally, I'm from Indonesia, which in the Southeast Asia, we also face the similar issue as well. And Indonesia ranks 85th out of 149 countries. There are numerous cases, especially for the female populations in related countries, for me to undergo the burden of discrimination and stigmatization rooted in the lack of, for example, facilities for maternal coverage, the limitation in the opportunity to white or blue vocations, the disparity in the educations, or even at our everyday lives, our habitual basis, like the mistreatment or violence perpetrated by the other genders. So yeah, it's a very big mark, and we have to really, resolve this. And I have three general methods in the next slide, please. So yeah, I propose three methods to tackle this issue. The first one is by shifting the culture by certain ideology. And the second one is our participations and initiative in international organizations. And the third one is the utilizations of the internet sophistications. And yeah, we can go to the next slide. So I will talk about the first one, which is ideology. One of the examples of it is the feminisms. So just a brief catch up, because we live in the dynamic state of the world, and a lot of cultures or ideologies come to emerge. So one of them is feminism. So feminisms in the essence is synonymous with the attempt to uphold gender equality. For me, it's a practical effort to combat the gender disparity. It sounds abstract, but it can be concretized and input to the heart of educations. For examples, we can have knowledge disseminations to embrace or support all of the people in society despite their innate backgrounds. And it doesn't look at the, like the age or the backgrounds. I think like all people, should aware and know about, being courteous, being, collaborative with all people in society despite their genders. And the next one is, yeah, please jump to the next slide. So yeah, for the next ones, I propose international organizations. Yeah, the participations or participations. So I pick ASEAN as one of the examples of multinational organizations that encompasses Southeast Asian countries. ASEAN is congruent or in line with the humanitarian missions, which attempts to empower collaborations of all genders. ASEAN's emphasize they gear towards broadening the field of work, healthcare, and educations to generate a safe ecosystem for all people. Young people of the generations have the responsibility to decide the future of the impending epoch. So therefore, the vessel of ASEAN can maximize our potential to contribute ideas or notions or creativity that subsequently, we can have a broader impact on society. And also beside ASEAN, for people all across the world, I propose United Nations or UN. And actually, United Nations have the byproduct in the form of UN women. So yeah, two interesting examples that we as the young people can participate into, and also steer, as Barry mentions, because we also uphold the equality and inclusive for all people to participate equally to to external society. And yeah, please jump to the next slide. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, reflecting to those examples that I mentioned beforehand, enabling the cultural reset into a progressive trajectory is very important. The incremental step for that is to propagate the narration that values education to maintain and strengthen the gender rapport or relations for the masses, which can function as the social check and balance. For examples, how the victim of the gender misdeed can gain justice by us that officiating as the supporting law apparatus or as the source of knowledge of this issue. The sophistication of technology can also be assisting tool to voice our thoughts without geographical hindrance. The target demographic of this encompasses all segments of people, no matter their backgrounds, but especially Generation C, which is us. However, to reach more rural areas that are still at minimum level of digital literacy, we can be geared toward conventional or offline seminars. And on the next slide, please. Because I myself representing young people, and also all of you guys, relatively still young, right? Millennium or Gen Z. So us, the young people who aspire to be the agents of change, are inevitably imbued with proactive disposition. We cannot wait for other people to initiate something. Instead, we have the authority to independently do pragmatic acts. The addition of critical analysis can also be the complementary elements for us to be receptive to our milieu, our society, and not become just mere passive civilians. What makes the young generation special also lies in the creativity and the energy that should be constantly cultivated. The sense of cognizance or awareness is also inevitable, and it is possible by considering the impact scale of what we're gonna do, our vision, our missions, whether in the short or long term. The healthy interconnections between genders can benefit the system within the nation mobilization because how it intertwines with the unity of the human resources. Subsequently, it affects how the other parts of the world assess us in terms of human rights index. On the macro scale, which is relevant to the stakeholders or governments, for example, the representations of women, especially in the media, should not merely accentuate physical objectification. Therefore, it can inspire young girls uh, to assess themselves in respectful way or in the positive light. And also it applies to the gender counterparts for them to have more high regard in social relations. And additionally, it can break the sexual stigmatizations. So yeah, next slide, please. And also besides, I also mentioned about ASEAN and UN, right? I also have interesting events that, held back then at 2020. It's called Tokyo 2020 Olympic and Paralympic Games. And it was the momentum for the, gender equality to be as the substance of their dialogues. Concretely, their program is called Open Symposium on Gender Equality in Sports. It's from Chuntendo University in Japan. So they also cooperated with the ASEAN Secretariat alongside the UN Women, actually. So, and their initiative, it is under the spectrum of SDG, Vision number 5. SDG is Sustainable Development Goals. So SDG number 5 aims to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. So I think it's very great examples for us to comprehend. And the next slide, please. So the approach that I mentioned beforehand can be utilized as the tool of contemplations and the pathway for the women demographics and also men to climb on the status hierarchy without any hindrance. So, however, I have personal concern about about this, and I think I want the impact of our good initiative to be more holistic. So, for example, the populations that do not intend to participate in certain programs or have affiliations with the institutions can still get detrimental effects in the gender discriminations. So I propose by that for the better life, especially for the victim of gender injustice, should be something abundant and inclusive and not always something that is competitive to be achieved. So from my elaborations, I hope I can be in the mouthpiece to voice out this issue and enkindle the spirit of collaborations among other professionals to build a vision and mission that is beneficial for global necessity. So yeah, next slide. So that's all from me. Yeah, thank you. And in my language, terima kasih. Go back to you, Barry.
Thanks so much, Mr. Nicholas, for that insightful talk. I do believe in our generation now, people are taking action in making a safer and more equal, having more equal opportunities and roles for both genders. And as a woman, I do appreciate people, especially men, trying to fight for our rights and actually, you know, help us amplify our voices, and being part of various local and international organizations. I am proud to say that most of them have around, like, my estimate would be around 70% of women in our organizations have leadership roles already. And I do hope that in the future, more women will have more leadership roles in the workplace and, of course, in the government, because it's very important. But okay, we're almost there at the fun part. But before we continue to the Q&A session, I would just like to acknowledge one of Steer's co-presidents, Koen, for being here and supporting the session. So hi, Koen. And okay, so also I want to check if the participants are still well and alive. So maybe you guys could open up your cameras, or if you can't, maybe just send a heart or a thumbs up reaction. So I know that we still have participants here. Yes, I see new faces. And yeah, I hope you guys are still here with us and are enjoying the talks. So for the fun part, I think our speakers are already ready to answer some questions. I hope so. Yeah, Yunsu and Nicholas. So if you have any questions for our speakers, please do raise your hand. And if you are shy, maybe you can send it on the chat box, or you can send them privately to me so I can read them. If you have any questions, guys, for Nicholas and Yunsu. Okay, so okay, I will start the first question to keep the ball rolling later. So for Miss Yunsu, tell us, are you here, Yunsu? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. Tell us about the experience during your exchange that really made an impact in your life.
Okay, wow. Yeah, I've had 2 study abroad experiences so far. First was in the Netherlands, in a city called Groningen in the north, Groningen, and the second was in Peking University, that was in Beijing. I think, to be honest, the thing that had the most influence on me was the people that I met on exchange. I think even more than the academic work you do abroad, which is very eye-opening. It is a very precious experience getting to meet people from different countries and backgrounds, and yet share the same emotions, experiences, and outlook on life and being. And I think it really broadens you. I think this can sound either very cheesy or very cliche, but I think it is kind of become a cliche for a reason, because I personally have experienced it. And I think also these programs, these exchange programs that I've participated in, actually really emphasizes the human connection, the personal aspect of it, that these individuals who come to forge these personal connections actually make a difference in the continent, in the region, in the professional and personal lives. And that generation actually forms something different from the previous generation, which was perhaps less connected. So I think the most influential thing for me were the personal connections and friends that I made along the way, and what I learned from them. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that answer, Ms. Yunsu. So, since there are no questions yet on our chat box, I will continue. So the next question is for Mr. Nicholas. So, you've mentioned UN Women. Can you give us an impactful or some impactful movements that they have successfully done to help women around the world?
Yeah, correct.
Can you give us like examples of like some movements?
Oh, so what these human AUN women do so far right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So actually I can give you the link for for you guys to read, but I'm gonna summarize it briefly. I think what they're doing right now is pretty effective considering their geographical scale, because they are all around the world, and the UN Women have the programs called flagships programs. So it consists of multi-dimensional fields like finance or vocations, the healthcare, and it all directed towards the marginalized society. And most of them happen to be the women in the I would say the underdeveloped countries. So yeah, I can give you the link for for you guys to read. But yeah, I think it's great initiative for the UN, to be considered.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Mr. Nicholas. So, if any one of you have more questions for Nicholas and Yunsu, can please feel free to post them on the chat or raise your hand. Okay, great. The next question I would like to ask is for Miss Yunsu. This might be a little bit biased, I would say, but where is the best country for you to do an exchange?
For me, okay, that is okay, that's very difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done it in the Netherlands and China, which was a very different experience. I'm not sure. I think I think personally it depends on my current situation in my academic and professional career and what I want out of it. For my European exchange, I wanted more to move around Europe and see and travel. So that was good. For my Chinese exchange, I wanted more academic focus and I want to learn more about China. I think like the best place to do an exchange is different from person to person because like the scholarships or the grants that they can get, the and the mobility, etc., is different from person to person. Yeah, I mean personally I would like to go back both to Netherlands and Beijing once more. It's like asking to choose a favorite child, so I might have to refrain a bit, but yeah, it's really hard. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But, you know, if you want to do an exchange, most people would like to, of course, ask some, what do you call it, tips or like experiences from those who have experienced it. So, like for me, I also want to do like to study in Netherlands, so that's why I asked you.
Oh yeah.
I was hoping you would say Netherlands. So yeah. But thank you so much, Miss Yunsu. So we have a question from the audience for Nicholas. How can the three tools you mentioned for improving gender equality be applied in higher education or university?
It's a great question because it's relevant for me. I just graduated this year, but the uh, the university nuance still still intact in me. So yeah, one by one, for the first one, which is the ideology. Of course, these three can intertwine with each other. It can interlink with each other. In my university, actually, it's pretty general in the university in my country, Indonesia, to have some sort of like the collective that try to prevent sexual misconduct or sexual harassments among the students. So they have that collective. It's formal actually, and it is stipulated in our constitution. So every educational institutions uh, is have a compulsory, have responsibility to initiate that kind of collective. So on the side of ideology, it is very helpful, and they also working on the field pragmatically and also on social media. So let's say for the in the field is not considered as really effective, so they can switch to social media to for the broader people in society can hear our voice, our complaints, or our like our desire to have the this justice to behold. So yeah, it's intertwined with the ideological one and the technological one that I mentioned. And for the international organizations, also it's not as grand as the UN or ASEAN, but it inspired us to initiate some sort of like collectives that reaching external organization as well to really if we have something like some issues in common, we have to resolve it together, like student board, or maybe if you guys know about ISEC, I don't know if it's prevalent in some countries, but yeah, that's one of the examples. Or besides ISEC, Rotary organizations. So yeah, on the scale of the university in my context, or I'll call it education, it is uh working, it's working, but like, and it's always can be improved over time. So yeah, I hope it answered your questions.
Okay, I hope Mr. Nicholas have answered Kevin's question. And for the next question, it's from YBB Foundation. The question is addressed to Ms. Yunsu. Okay, so besides the personal impact, besides the personal impact that higher education exchange have on individuals, in your opinion, how can these exchanges improve bilateral relations between countries? Do you think they're useful tools to improve relations between states?
Yes, I think they can be useful tools to improve relations between states. I mean, perhaps not the main catalyst, but I think it certainly does help. As I mentioned in my presentation, the something like the Erasmus program, which is a very European-wide exchange of student and faculty and just mobility of individuals. I think if that really it started quite modestly, like just a few hundred, maybe 1,000 students, but it has accumulated 13 million people. So this, I think, actually has an impact on the relations between countries. I think these people who have had this kind of experience will have a very different perspective and a different will have a different voice, a different kind of demand for the political parties in their home countries as well. So I think it'll have improve relations between countries, as well as I think ASEAN and East Asia and all these regions are having all these different programs for a reason. I think something that is not as like politically contested, something higher education as something that can continue despite any political upheavals. I think this could be actually very a valuable resource in the bilateral relations between countries, and it can improve relations. For example, China, Korea, and Japan. The countries in East Asia don't always get along. and we've had trade disputes and historical disputes and whatnot. But continuing the Campus Asia program and the Trilateral Youth Summit and these kind of different initiatives, I think certainly does help for individuals, for youths, and certainly helps for the organizers on the ministerial governmental level as well, as they can at least continue something. So I think in many different regions, it can improve relations between states. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yunsu. And another one from our participants to Mr. Nicholas. How can governments and other stakeholders work together to address issues related to gender equality and promote greater equity and opportunity for all individuals, regardless of their gender identity or expression? What policies and programs have been successful in this regard, and what challenges remain? Thank you.
Well, it's a pretty complex one, you know.
Yeah, but he said, like, just answer it based on your opinion.
Yeah, for sure. So it consists of more than one question, I assume, you know, from the statement of the questions. So I try to answer it one by one, you know. So for the first one is how can government and the stakeholders work together to address the issues? So I think, you know, if we say like it's on the broader landscape, the country consists of government or stakeholders and the civilians, right? So for most countries, I think, yeah, especially the country with democracy value, there is like the reciprocal dialogues between the civilians and the stakeholders, you know, each of these components need each other, I guess. So yeah, for example, if the government, if you feel that the government or the stakeholders are not, you know, matching the quality of the, let's say, gender safety, we as the civilians can voice our opinions. So there are two ways to voice the opinions, like what I said before. The first one is by, you know, really doing it by in the tangible society, in the pragmatically, like protest on the street, let's say, or maybe like just have the collective or institutions that have the same visions regarding these matters. And also social media, internet, really helpful. If we feel that our surroundings is not really supporting or have the awareness about this issue, by the internet we can reach the other area of our environment, of our society. So just understand that we are never alone in this matter, in this initiative. We are never alone, because also, like what I say, the international organizations also have the big role in this to not as just to promote the aspirations, but also to assess each countries by, let's say, gender index or humanity index. So it is those tools, those can, you know, benefits, I would say, work to like maintain the ethic within respective nations. So how many questions on this one questions? Wait. Oh yeah, and also the policies and programs. So yeah, I would say like also some changes, like let's say I will give the example of in Arab Saudi, because if I remember, it's dated back in 2017 or 2018, they leave the ban for women to drive, you know, on public. So yeah, it is a good, I would say, improvement regarding to like the gender equality for no matter their gender, we as a human being can just you know, do the same thing, do the similar thing. So yeah, I think that's one of the examples. So regarding like regardless the nations that we live right now, or like the environment that we live right now, if we feel that there is something that need to be improved, we have the rights to, you know, to voice our thoughts. It starts from the first step. The baby step is by, making ourselves to be, to be like the best version, or like the similar as what we achieve, because like what we want to achieve, it related to external aspects, right? But the baby step is from the internal one, which is to, for us, like let's say me, to if I encounter like the different gender, you know I treat them as the human being, not like, wow, you're women and you blah blah blah. No, it's just like the just basic human ethics, I would say. So it starts from ourselves first, before we jump into like the broader aspects. I hope my explanation answered your question.
Thank you, Nicholas. And the next question is also for Nicholas. Or do you want to skip it first, like Yunsu first, then we'll come back to you? Okay, great. The next question is for Miss Yunsu. Oh,
Yes.
okay. So, how can one apply for a scholarship, like based on your experience? So, can you maybe run us down through the process, like how you did it?
Okay. I think getting a lot of information is important. I think a lot of people don't apply for these programs and scholarships because they don't even know it exists. So I would say just keep a lookout at like boards and notices and LinkedIn posts, etc., as much as possible, although it is a very daunting thing to do. And for me personally, applying to Yenching happened very serendipitously when I met another Japanese girl who was attending Yenching Academy and recommended the program to me on another regional exchange kind of program. So you should definitely put yourself out there, and I don't want to use networking in the corporate sense, but I think really looking at what people who aspire similar things as you are doing out there, and asking around and asking for advice and modeling after them actually does help. And in my experience, a lot of people who applied to Yenching also reached out to people on LinkedIn who were attending the program and asked for advice for interviews and etc. So I think information is really important, and also not being daunted, like feeling what do you call it, imposter syndrome, and excluding yourself. I think that is something to be wary of. So I think those two are the most important. Yes.
Thank you, Miss Yunsu. And yeah, we are very fortunate actually at here, because there are a lot of scholars, like those who are recipients of Erasmus Mundus. So for us, it's very easy to ask around, chat a colleague or something like that. So yeah, I do really advocate for people to join different opportunities that would run your way. Okay, so we continue for another question for Nicholas from the participants. So the question is, how can gender equality apply in some conservative countries? For example, in some countries like India.
Out this matter. So yeah, and I would say because we are, well, I assume that we are all civilians. I mean, like non-governmental people or something. So yeah, it start with initiative. Initiative to do something, to initiate something. Because if we wait for the government for changement, it can take forever, honestly. So yeah, it start with us, with how we what we mobilize and how we gather our thoughts with other people is the most important one. So yeah, it starts within us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. So, if there are still questions from the participants, you may send them on our chat box. Okay, so another question for Nicholas. Okay, so how can we effectively address the deeply ingrained societal basis and power imbalances that continue to prevent true gender equality, even where legal frameworks are in place?
Think, like the questions that, I attempt to answer have like something in common about is the inquiry about the ideas about the initiative. So, but like it's okay. It's very important to have this kind of discourse, this kind of brainstorm. So yeah, effectively address the like what I said before is possible, and it takes a relatively long time, and because we live in the technological era, and on social media there are a lot of accounts on, let's say, Instagram, or if you guys use Meta or X, they have like the accounts to, to voice the matter of gender equality, like the feminist account, I would say. So they have like this service for emergency call, or like they willing to provide us with a lawyer if especially for the victim of gender discriminations. So it's about how we look at the opportunity that provided by internet, and internet is very broad. And yeah, like what I said, like we are never alone in this matter. So but like we have to, but we cannot stand alone, we are not alone, but we cannot stand alone. So therefore we have to collect the people with like similar mindset with us to really propagate this vision and missions. So yeah, and like what I said, if like the legal frameworks is deemed not really effective, I mean, we as the people can be supporting apparatus, like let's say the I don't know like the English term for it, but like it's roughly about like to like the collective of non-governmental to like if the victims of like gender violence or gender in like sexual assault, like let's say like that. So this collective working to collect their thoughts, like their concern, and by that these collected thoughts got distributed to the legal apparatus. So us can be like the supporting apparatus if like let's say the legal system is not really working effective. We can be like quote unquote the bridge between like the victims for them to gain the justice. So yeah, that's what I propose. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nicholas. So there's another question for Mr. Nicholas. What measures can be taken to encourage more girls and women to participate in decision-making processes within educational institutions, and what role does inclusive curriculum and teaching methodologies play in promoting gender equality in education?
Interesting question. So yeah, for not only on, yeah, education is like I think the this like the big indicators of the society of civilizations, because is the place of how our minds can be cultivated, so yeah, like in my presentations I mentioned about like the input of, like I would say, like the gender equality educations to be taught in school ever since people were really young. So yeah, and also I want to highlight about the equal opportunity as well, and because like by equal opportunity, I think equal opportunity is like very similar with meritocracy. Is like to assess our competency, our ability based on what we do, what we objectively do, instead of our innate backgrounds, because gender is something that we cannot choose. I didn't choose. I was born as a man. Like, let's say Barry didn't choose to born as a woman. So I think like what decide us to be like, let's say Nicholas or Barry, for example, is what we do in society instead of or what we appear visually or what we were born with. So yeah, I think like those kind of like mindsets should be transfixed in the not only educations but also vocational fields, to become more objective in if like let's say the women wants to uh, participate in educational institutions or white collar job, like say like that. So yeah, it's based upon their competency. And yeah, I mean, for now, like also it's lays on upon the our willingness or like or what a man or woman wants to do in society. So let's say that relating to participations in society, like let's say the bricklayers consist mostly of men, like 99% of them, and nurse, uh, almost all of them are women. But we cannot say blatantly that that is gender discriminations or gender inequality. It's not like that. Like I was just like for clarifications, like what I consider as gender discrimination is something that, you are judged based upon your gender. Like maybe you get looked down upon to based upon your gender, or get mistreated based upon your gender. So I would say that it is, if it's their choice to be like that, if men choose to be bricklayers, let them be, and women choose to be nurse, let them be. But let's say in the reverse, if women wants to be in the bricklayer vocations, well, we give like the equal opportunity for them to participate, but like uh, these certain women also have should have like this similar competency, what required to be the bricklayer also apply on a nurse. That's just my analogies to like clarify between gender discriminations, or like, but sometimes it's just about like what we want to do in society. And yeah, sorry to explain it too long, but also yeah, thank you for mentioning about inclusive curriculum and teaching methodologies. Also yeah, like what I said, like the if we feel like the school institution, the formal educations not really accommodate our needs in the education of gender equality, we can be like the initiator, like the one that breaking the wave of like to create new culture about the gender equality in the system of educations, like what I said, from social media, or even like the conventional one, like the seminars. So yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nicholas, and I hope um, our participants who asked the questions are satisfied. And for the next question is for Miss Yunsu. Do you have any words of motivation for those who wants to do an exchange, or those who want to venture to join in other opportunities but are like, too shy, and some have lack resources or some sort?
Yeah. Well, personally, I do get really shy and daunted myself, but I think if you really want to do it, I would say like really go ahead, even if there are personal difficulties, economic difficulties, etc. I think I know that makes it much harder to move abroad, but there are many quite a few fully funded scholarships if you search for it. And yeah, I would just really say you should go for the opportunity if you can, because there are a lot catering to young people. And I think if you would just really choose one kind of venture, it will simultaneously lead to a whole other kind of opportunities and a different path that you could not have known or imagined before. That is what happened to me. So I think even if it doesn't fit in with the roadmap you have laid out, like, oh, I wanted to go here, but maybe there, okay, that maybe doesn't look so good. Maybe that doesn't sound, maybe that's a bit, I think this kind of sentiment can be quite common, but I think if you think it will benefit you in some way, you should go for it, because it really kind of, yeah, it'll take unexpected turns, and I think you may really like what you find. So that would be my advice, speaking from personal experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Yunsu, and also thank you, Nicholas. I guess, oh, sorry. There's another follow-up question for Nicholas. How do we solve the problem of gender segregation according to work or occupation?
So we still have time. I mean, like, I can answer it if you still have time for me to answer. So it's okay, right? Okay.
Yeah, we
So
still have a lot of time.
okay, yeah, it's interesting question. Yeah, about the segregation, I would say the inequality, right, is pretty similar with the term segregations, like let's say the salary. So yeah, there there's been a huge debate whether about the gender pay gap, whether it's true or not. I mean, like that kind of debate is pretty. I mean, like kind of overshadow like the real case, because like people sometimes like looking at the quantity of like the, let's say, the gender discriminations within vocations, like what they consider as exist or not. Sometimes people consider as exist like if it's reached like 1,000 cases or like million cases. Oh, so yeah, gender discrimination is exists. But like I think one is also equal to let's say 1,000 cases, because one also like the indicator that this phenomenon is exists, you know, this gender segregation. So yes, at some companies there were some cases, numerous cases about, I would say, concretely the segregation relating to the gender pay gap. Sometimes, I mean, like if they working, I mean, like let's say women and men, if these women and men not working at the same hours and they got paid differently, well, it is reasonable because they are working not on the same hours. But if they're working on the same hours with the same quality and they got paid differently, so that's you know, like that's, it has to be our concern. And I think I forgot if I mentioned this or not, but like ever since the year 2000, uh approximately I think like a lot of companies, like I think 500 companies in like the top fortune companies all over the world, you know, like the big companies that we know, 99% of them faces like the lawsuit regarding to the gender discriminations, whether in the form of the salary or the sexual assault. So yeah, a lot of like legal systems that they proposed regarding that. But unfortunately, there were some cases about like the matter that not really clarified yet. I would say if the victims want to say something, they, you know, it's not resolved yet, or like this issue become silence, I would say. That's very unfortunate. And well, thankfully, because the presence of social media, I mean, it happens a lot. If like if we say like if the company or even like the institutions, legal institutions is not working properly, we can always gather people with similar perspective, similar ethic in social media. And yeah, but other than that, also company I think is it is compulsory for them to have ESG, environmental, social, and governance. So this gender discrimination is relating to the social aspect. So that's how like these stakeholders know their quality, whether they working efficiently in like working with government, working with environment, especially treating their employees with objective viewpoints instead of looking like or discriminating their genders. So yeah, those ESG is something that should be also considered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Nicholas. And for our last question for today's session, it's addressed to both Miss Yunsu and Mr. Nicholas. So I believe Miss Yunsu would like to answer first. So the question is, what particular difficulties do women encounter when applying for study abroad scholarships, and what steps may be taken to remove these barriers so that female students have equal access to foreign education?
I think it'll be different from culture to culture and from country to country. But I have read that some female students from Saudi Arabia might find it difficult to move abroad or live in a different kind of social expectation surrounding gender living abroad. I think it can be difficult to remove these barriers at once, but I do think equal access to foreign education is really important. Because, for example, like say if only male students go abroad or pursue a foreign education in law or in for example medicine, and female students don't get that opportunity of studying medicine, for example, I think that would have an effect on how medicine is practiced in the home country, maybe less attention to women's bodies, etc. So I think equal access is very important, first of all for the students themselves, but for the advancement of academia and other fields in the home country as well. I think in countries where there are noticeably less female students studying abroad compared to male students, there should be initiatives to really push. There should be like scholarships and mentorships catering to targeting female students, and like so female students should feel that there is a guideline and a roadmap that can lead to studying abroad, and it is not something unachievable. And of course, if female students have those particular logistical difficulties from studying abroad, I think maybe the institution receiving them can offer different kinds of dorms or different kinds of accommodation or services for these students. So although it might not be the easiest for the receiving institution, I think doing this is important to have better representation. So that those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Ms. Yunsu. And how about for Mr. Nicholas?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Yunsu just said. And also just to add briefly, I think a lot of institutions, especially in the Western Hemisphere, like Europe or United States, they really have, really have big promotions about the scholarship for women for the U.S. Embassy, because I've been to exchange to the United States. I think on the U.S. Embassy they have the program for young leader for women, and they really wants to, because like the Western Hemisphere especially wants to embrace what is called as inclusivity. So not just for gender, is also for I would say the minority. If people with disability, people with from different, I mean, like the race minority, different skin complexions. Um, the institutions in Western Hemisphere really wants to, for them to become the students in their countries, because also, especially maybe people from Europe can correct me about this, but like about they want to like uh, become, I mean, like the preventive act for the amount of the people in their countries. So I think by the people from abroad to come to their countries can become like the additional I would say the elements in society, because like the birth rate is pretty minimum, right? So I think scholarship is one of the ways not to, I mean, like is relating to birth rate, is relating to the how the society is become more alive, quote unquote. So yeah, and I just clicked on the Google search. If you search for scholarships for women, I would say they have like hundred of the options. So yeah, by internet you can just find it, what you think is most suitable for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Nicholas and Yunsu. And that's it for our Q&A session. And as per the organizers' request, may we request you all to open your cameras, for we will have our photo opportunity in a while. Okay, I believe it'll be the organizers of the Istanbul Youth Summit who will take the picture. Okay. So we have 2 slides right now. So for the first slide, please smile. So just keep the smiles going. Okay, so okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, the next slide. 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. And okay, so thank you so much for participating in today's session. I hope you got a thing or two from our speakers. And of course, on behalf of STEER, I would like to thank the organizers of the Istanbul Youth Summit for inviting us, and looking forward for more opportunities together. So thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Take blame, but I can't accept that we're estranged without you. Without you, I can't quit now. This can't be right. I can't take one more sleepless night without you. want you